from the period when the concept of manga was born in 1814 to the birth of Japan's first anime in 1907 is considered the embryonic period. From 1908 to 1945, if Japan's first full-length anime was born during the budding period, then from 1946 onwards, it would be considered the exploration period of Japanese manga. Many well-known characters appeared during this time period, making that era the most important era for Japanese manga. Firstly, the Japanese people became uneasy after the war, and cultural consumption rose against economic trends. Secondly, after the war ended, Japan's newborn population increased significantly. From 1940 to 1950, Japan's population increased by nearly 10 million people, which meant that manga viewership will increase proportionally in the future. The manga world once again revived in a rage. Manga artists used the magazines and newspapers as the stage to start creating manga freely. The most famous of these is Sazaesan, published in 1946 by Hasegawa Machiko. This manga tells the everyday story of a woman named Sazae. Because the daily life of this family can reflect the image of a modern Japanese family after World War II, this made the Sazaesan manga very popular in those years. It was serialized from 1946 to the beginning of 1974, and a total of 6,477 chapters of content had been serialized, making it one of the representative works of national Japanese manga. Its 1969 anime adaptation restored the manga's atmosphere of old traditional Japanese society, evoking nostalgia for those who grew up reading the Sazaesan manga as a child. Therefore, even until now, the Sazaesan anime is still being broadcasted and managed to break records as one of the longest-running scripted TV series in history and the longest-running animated show. Then, in 1946, that man appeared for the first time in front of the reader's eyes, and he was Tezuka Osamu, the god of manga. Although it sounds a bit exaggerated, whether it was in the Japanese manga or anime industry, he was legendary for both, and he is the most important figure. If I were to comment in detail on his contributions and the impact he had on future generations, then this video probably wouldn't be long enough, so I'll try to give a brief introduction. Tezuka Osamu became interested in anime under the influence of foreign animations such as Disney when he was a child. He often watched animation works from other countries to supplement his knowledge, such as the Chinese animation Princess Iron Fan, or having watched Bambi more than 80 times, remembering every detail in the play. In 1945, after watching Momotaro's Sacred Sailors, he was deeply moved and determined to be a manga artist, creating manga since his student days. In 1946, when he was 18 years old, he released his first work, Diary of Machan. At that time, Tezuka Osamu already felt that that type of general 4-frame manga strip was set, and it was too limiting to draw a great story. In 1947, he applied the zooming, wide-angle, overhead, and other techniques commonly used in movies to New Treasure Island, which seemed to make the artwork move. This refreshing model was immediately welcomed as soon as it was launched, taking the first step towards becoming a modern, mainstream visual manga, influencing future famous manga artists, and laying the foundation for the development of Japanese manga. In his works, he always repeatedly emphasizes that all things have life, and all living things are equal. This kind of simple human myth derived from primitive religion had been fully revealed. Whether it was interpreting ancient legends or telling modern stories, they all had a strong magical color to it, which is also the biggest feature of Tezuka Osamu's works. But before 1954, most people thought that manga was for children, and Tezuka Osamu wanted to change those people's stereotypes about manga. He began to innovate more in his own work, and in 1950, he referenced Bambi for his first full-length series, Kimba, the White Lion. Although this work was not as romantic as Disney is, it explores some more realistic and profound issues. In 1952, the appearance of Astro Boy caused a sensation in Japan, completely reversing Japan and the world's prejudice against anime works. In 1953, he created the world's first shoujo manga, Princess Knight. In 1954, Phoenix was born. This work, which took him all his life to serialize, explores the good and evil of human nature, life and death, religious politics, war and peace, and other philosophical issues. It is known as the greatest masterpiece of Tezuka Osamu, his life's work, even considered by many people to be the highest masterpiece in Japanese manga history. In addition, the famous shoujo manga magazine Nakayoshi was founded in 1954 under the influence of the first shoujo manga's birth. That same year, after Tezuka Osamu moved out of his original apartment, Tokiwaso, he invited 2 other people to take a room. 2 people I'm sure you are all familiar with. Doraemon's author, Fujiko F. Fujio. Then, Fujiko F. Fujio invited those rookie artists to come over once a room became available. A new manga association was formed under the convocation of Terada Hiro, like Kamen Rider author Ishinomori Shotaro being one of them. It can be said that there are many impressive manga artists, but only Tezuka Osamu can be called a god, whose status in Japan is equivalent to that of Walt Disney in the United States. Not to mention that he even earned an MD while writing these manga. Even with the rapid development of manga, anime was not idle, and it was constantly exporting culture to foreign countries. After the war, due to the influence of policies, Japanese anime was freely broadcast in developing countries, which promoted the corporate brand and also increased its influence in the world. In addition, the discussion and reflection on the war have also become one of the themes of Japanese anime in the future. In 1956, Japan Animated Films changed its name to Toei Animation after it was acquired. It used a lot of human and material resources to produce high-quality anime at a rate of one per year with the intention of creating Japan's own Disney. The first color anime in Japan was The Tale of the White Serpent by Toei Animation in 1958, successfully letting the Japanese people know that manga and anime were not just for children. However, some parents began to think that manga was a vulgar product, and it began to suffer a lot of attacks. But in 1959, with Weekly Shonen Sunday and Weekly Shonen magazines, these original weekly manga magazines, the parents, although they were not happy, gradually began to accept that children could occasionally read manga without affecting their learning. The exploration period of Japanese anime and manga ended in this way from 1946 to 1960, and the maturation period began in 1961. During those 10 years, it was no longer just Tezuka Osamu's struggle story alone. He would lead all the manga artists and animators who went through their highs and lows in those 10 plus years. In 1961, Tezuka Osamu left Toei Animation to set up his own anime company, Mushi Production. At this time, he realized that it was impossible to beat Disney by quality in terms of animation. As early as their Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs movie more than 20 years prior, they established their own set of animation production theories and production processes, which became the only classic and norm. Walt Disney's huge capital and meticulous production of manpower and material resources were almost impossible to imitate in other countries at the time other than in the United States. Even if Disney was so powerful, they still had limitations that couldn't be avoided. High quality, small quantity, not to mention that even when they had so many resources, they almost went bankrupt when they made Pinocchio. So, Tezuka Osamu decided to subvert Disney's theory of fighting quality through quantity. He roughly proposed 3 methods. The first is to pressure labor, increase the work of the animators, cut animation production costs, and produce external related products to earn royalties. It is worth mentioning that this is not the same as capitalism. Tezuka Osamu not only pressured his own employees, he also pressured himself. As the top, he didn't ask for much in wages, and others didn't dare to ask for much. The second is the shot on threes rule. During the anime production process, there were 24 frames per second. That is, 24 pictures are shown per second. Shot on threes means that in order to save manpower and material resources, 8 pictures are shown per second, and each picture stays for 3 frames. This method would limit the fluidity of movement, but it was also suitable for expressing speed and power. The third is to reuse artwork, such as reusing some exquisite artwork like transformations and ultimate attacks. I'm talking about you, Sailor Moon. There are many people in modern times who accuse Tezuka Osamu of these practices because he led to low wages for many animators and caused the quality of many Japanese anime to be too low. I would like to say that this is completely survivorship bias. Without these rules, Japanese anime may not have been able to thrive at all, and many animators wouldn't even have been able to find jobs. Or even without Tezuka Osamu, these rules would have been invented sooner or later. Back to the topic. Astro Boy, Japan's first TV anime broadcast in 1963, was a huge success, even though it only had an average low price of 500,000 yen per episode at the beginning. With a high viewership rate of 30%, it set a record for the viewership rate of anime in Japan. Before Astro Boy, there were anime on TV like Mitsu no Hanashi in 1960 and Otogi Manga Calendar in 1961 on a regular basis. But their episodes aren't too long, and historical photos are often inserted along the way to supplement these anime. After the Astro Boy broadcast, considering the funding, sponsor advertisements, etc., future Japanese TV anime were set to be more than 20 minutes per episode. However, some TV anime will increase the time to 30 minutes in order to better tell a story, like the second season of ReZero. The low salaries for animators were largely exaggerated when most of Mushi Production's staff were hired from Toei Animation, including Japan's first female animator, Kazuka Nakamura. If there was no certain set salary, then no one would have come. In the same year, other than Astro Boy, Japan's first giant robot anime, Tetsujin 28 Go, was born. as well as Japan's first late-night anime, Senin Buraku. These three firsts were all born in the same year. Other than the first late-night anime, the serialization of Senin Buraku's manga was serialized from 1956 to 2014, longer than Kochikame Tokyo Beat Cops and Doraemon. It is the longest-running strip ever in Japan. But its record is likely to be broken by Golgo 13 within the next few years. Other pioneers were born in the realm of shoujo manga, created by Princess Knight as the forerunner, and Sally the Witch, which aired in 1966, pioneered the path of the magical girls genre. At this time, magical girls were closer to those witches of the West. Closer to the modern magical girl genre is Himitsu no Ako-chan, which was broadcast in 1969. Not only is the name more localized, but the magic props, such as the broom used by witches, are replaced by mirrors. This prompts the future works of the magical girl genre to have the protagonist bring some magical props to promote the sales of external goods. Even though the Himitsu no Ako-chan anime is 3 years after Sally the Witch, Himitsu no Ako-chan's manga was released in 1962, just 4 years before Sally the Witch. It wasn't until Sally the Witch began serialization almost a year after it ended that Himitsu no Ako-chan is considered the undisputed ancestor. Its innocent and romantic magical girl feelings have influenced a lot of works in later generations, making every girl long for it when she was a child, until the appearance of a headless horseman. Coincidentally, these two works were produced by Toei Animation, and it can be seen that Astro Boy had successfully made them notice the big cake of TV anime. Not far behind, Mushi Production broadcasted Japan's first color TV anime, Kimba the White Lion, in 1965, and animated Princess Knight in 1967, with Nakamura Kazuko as director. At that time, anime had gradually become a product that families enjoyed during the holidays, and everything was developing in the direction of positive hope. However, a disaster would strike the entire Japanese anime and manga industry, and Japanese manga will face its lowest fall since the war.